A beautiful young woman touches an ancient relic and vanishes. She awakens in a lost world, centuries before her time, trapped in the middle of a brutal war between forgotten civilizations. Shadows stalk her. Something monstrous with glowing red eyes hunts from the jungle. She runs, he follows. Panic rises, screams echo through the trees. Who is he? What does he want? Just when she's cornered, a lone warrior appears. But is he friend or bait? The sky bleeds crimson. Spirits whisper in the wind. Nothing is safe. No one can be trusted. And she's not the only one lost in time. I wasn't looking for anything strange, just needed time away from the noise, something real to focus on. When Dr. Calder invited me to New Mexico to assist in a desert excavation, I thought it would be quiet work. Just sand, ruins, notes. Simple. My name's Tessa. I'm 24, fresh out of grad school, still figuring things out. We found the tomb after 3 days. A buried stone vault sealed beneath layers of clay. The others marked it as ceremonial. But I felt something the second we cracked it open, like the air shifted, thicker, heavier. I stepped inside alone while the team set up gear. The chamber walls were painted with symbols I couldn't place. Not Aztec, not Mayan. They pulsed with something older. At the center lay a polished black disc embedded into the floor. I knelt down, touched it. The ground vanished. I hit stone, hard. The sky was wrong, deep red clouds swirled overhead. Heat pressed down from all sides. I was no longer in the desert. No roads, no people. Just towering jungle and distant firelight. Drums pounded nearby. Screams echoed through the trees. I turned to see warriors running past, faces painted, weapons raised. They didn't see me, but something else did. He stepped out of the trees like smoke. Malik, that's the name I heard later. His face was inhuman. No eyes, only black pits burning with red light. His skin looked stretched too tight, his mouth revealing 2 fang-like teeth. The warriors scattered. I ran. Branches cut my arms. My heart slammed into my ribs. The forest kept moving around me, whispering things I couldn't understand. When I finally collapsed by the river, someone found me. His name was Oren. He couldn't have been more than 25, worn leather armor, sharp features, calm eyes. He said I was lucky Malik hadn't taken me right away. He believed I was from another time. He believed everything. He told me Malik was once human, long ago. A war priest turned monster, cursed for betrayal. Now he ruled the valley with fear and silence. Villages disappeared. Whole families vanished. No one spoke his name, except Oren. He'd seen Malik destroy his brother's village, swore to stop him, even if it meant death. I didn't know why, but I trusted him. We weren't alone. Oren's friend Ryan joined us. He didn't talk much, but he moved like someone who'd been hunted before. And then there was Saya, a woman with soft steps and pale eyes. She said the spirits had sent me. Each night we camped further from safety. The jungle got quieter. Trees seemed to breathe. Sometimes I'd wake to chanting, not from our group, from deeper inside the dark. We reached the ruins of a temple carved into stone cliffs. Saya said this was once a sacred place, before Malik tainted it. That night we waited. He came with the storm. Not alone. Behind him were figures that didn't walk, they floated. Pale, broken things with faces like melted clay. I couldn't move. Oren stood between them and me. He raised his spear, the fire went out, and everything turned black. The first thing I noticed was the silence. Not just quiet, complete absence of sound. Even the wind felt like it was holding its breath. I thought maybe I was dreaming again, but then I felt the dirt beneath my fingers, the heat against my skin. Oren stood nearby, sharpening a piece of stone against his belt. We had camped under a broken arch, a ruin swallowed by vines. The others slept in shifts. Saya sat near the edge of the clearing, eyes closed, whispering things I didn't understand. I stayed close to the fire, not because it kept me warm, but because it felt like a barrier. Oren said we needed to move before sunrise. The shadows moved differently after dark. Some didn't wait for permission. We traveled east, crossing shallow rivers and bridges made of old bone and vine. The terrain shifted quickly. Lush forest turned into jagged black stone. I asked what this place used to be. Ryan answered without turning. A city, one that chose the wrong god. By midday, we reached a plateau. From there, we could see the valley, smoke rising in columns, distant drums pulsing low and slow. Saya said Malik was growing stronger. Each night, more villages vanished. I asked how he could be stopped. No one spoke. That night, I dreamed of fire, a stone door, whispers in a language I didn't know but somehow understood. a voice asking me to remember. When I woke, the sky was purple, and the others were already packing. My chest felt heavy, like something had followed me out of the dream. We met another group near the ravine. Survivors. A woman named Era with a broken arm, and 2 boys no older than 10. They had walked for days. She said their home had been swallowed by mist, and when they tried to run, the air burned their lungs. Oren offered them food. I noticed his hands were shaking. We reached the temple ruins by dusk. The entrance was half buried in stone, covered in roots. Saya stood before it for a long time. She whispered the names of people I didn't know, then stepped aside. Oren turned to me and asked if I felt ready. I didn't answer. I just nodded. Inside, the air was different, colder. The walls pulsed with faint light, like the symbols were breathing. As we moved deeper, the noise outside disappeared. Even our footsteps sounded muted. At the end of the hall, we found a chamber with a stone altar in the center. Something had been waiting here. There were markings along the walls, faces etched in pain, not carved, burned. The room felt ancient, but not abandoned. It felt watched. Oren lit the torch and signaled to Ryan. They began placing the talismans we'd gathered. Saya stood near the altar, her eyes distant. She said we only had one chance. If Malik crossed the threshold, we couldn't run. I held the relic in my hands, the same disc that brought me here. Its surface shimmered, no longer black, but a soft red glow. I felt it pulse like a heartbeat, mine or something else. Then the light outside vanished. A sound echoed through the halls, low and uneven, like breath being pulled backward. The fire dimmed, the torch Oren held flickered. I stepped closer to him. I didn't need to ask. We all knew what was coming. Malik entered without sound. His body moved like smoke, drifting but heavy. His face hadn't changed, still hollow, still wrong. But this time he looked at me, not just past me, through me. He raised a hand, the walls shivered. The talismans cracked. Ryan moved first, throwing the first charge toward the altar. It lit the symbols with a brilliant blue. Malik paused. Oren grabbed my arm and pulled me behind him. The chamber shifted. The floor seemed to breathe. Wind howled from nowhere. Saya shouted words I couldn't understand, her voice layered, like something was speaking through her. Malik stepped forward. The fire exploded upward. Oren shoved me into the inner corridor and turned back. I screamed for him, but the sound was swallowed. Then everything turned white. When I opened my eyes again, I was alone. The ruins were silent. The relic was gone, and the only sound left was my own breath. When I came to, the sky was still dim, caught between night and dawn. I was lying near the same stone altar, but everything was different. The carvings had faded, the air was warmer. I didn't know how long I'd been unconscious, or if time had passed at all. There was no sign of Oren, no trace of Saya or Ryan. Just silence and the low hum of wind passing through stone. I tried calling out. My voice echoed, then faded. I felt a pressure building in my chest, not fear, something deeper. I stood slowly, legs unsteady. My fingers still tingled from touching the relic. I wandered through the ruined hallways, trying to find a way out. At the far end of the corridor, I spotted movement, a figure. My heart skipped, but when I stepped closer, I saw her. It wasn't Saya. Her name was Alira. She looked young, but her eyes felt ancient. She told me she had seen the flame, that I wasn't supposed to survive it. When I asked about the others, she looked down, said something had changed, that the temple had shifted. I didn't understand what she meant. She led me through a side passage that opened into a quiet canyon, the sky above glowing amber. For the first time, I saw signs of life. Birds flew low, smoke curled from distant huts, but something was wrong with the light. It felt unnatural, like time didn't belong here. Alira said Malik wasn't gone, just weakened. The relic had damaged his form, but not his reach. I asked how she knew. She showed me her arm. The skin was covered in the same symbols I saw in the tomb. They pulsed faintly when she spoke his name. We reached a settlement by dusk. People stared, not with fear, but caution. They had heard stories. A stranger from the sky, fire at the cliffs, shadows broken by light. A boy named Corin, maybe 15, offered me water. His sister Nali kept her eyes on the horizon, said the trees had started whispering again. That night, we stayed in a low wooden shelter. The walls were thin. Every creak made me flinch. Alira sat across from me, weaving thin red thread through a pendant made of bone. She said it would protect me from what was coming. I asked what that meant. She didn't answer. At some point, I dozed off. I woke to a soft humming outside. When I peered through the gap in the wall, I saw 3 villagers standing perfectly still. All facing east, not moving, not blinking, just watching. I didn't sleep after that. In the morning, the light had changed again, pale and slow, like something was draining the color from the air. We gathered supplies. Corin volunteered to guide us to the southern edge of the valley, said old priests once lived there, and one of them might still be alive. As we traveled, the jungle grew quieter. We saw no animals, no birds, only strange stone markers every mile, etched with spirals. Alira told Corin not to touch them. When he asked why, her answer was simple. They listen. By the 3rd day, we reached the mouth of a hidden cave. The air around it buzzed faintly, like a low chant just beneath hearing. I didn't want to go in, but Alira said we had to, that something inside still remembered the old world, and it might remember me. We stepped into the dark. The temperature dropped instantly. The air was thick, heavy with something unsaid. The walls glowed with soft green light, and further in, a wide chamber opened before us. A pool sat at the center, still and black. Alira knelt and whispered into it. The surface rippled, and something below answered. The pool rippled again. I took a step back. Alira didn't move. Her hands were steady. She looked into the water like she was speaking with something familiar. I didn't want to interrupt, but I felt it too. A presence rising. Corin stood near the entrance, his eyes darting. I knew he felt it. The air had shifted. Something unseen moved through the chamber. The light pulsed from the walls, growing stronger with each breath. I asked Alira what it was. She answered without turning. Memory. The pool was a vessel, not of water, but time. It didn't show reflections. It showed what had been, what still echoed. A soft shape formed beneath the surface. Not a face, not quite, just light forming into a pattern. Then a voice, deep and steady, filled the room. It spoke in a language I didn't know, but my body reacted. My hands trembled. My mind felt stretched. I looked at Alira. Her eyes were glowing. Soft white light shimmered across her skin. She didn't blink. She whispered something back to the pool, and whatever was there listened. Corin asked if we should leave. No one answered. The voice changed. Now it sounded like someone I knew. Orin, I heard his name, then mine, then silence. Alira finally turned. She said the relic wasn't destroyed. It had moved, reached deeper, left a gate open. I asked what gate. Her expression changed. Not fear, recognition. She said the gate leads where no light goes, where forgotten kings wait, and where Malik's body cannot follow, but his voice can. We had to go there. Corin didn't want to. He shook his head and backed away from the chamber. I couldn't blame him, but I knew we had no choice. If the relic had passed through, maybe Orin had too. We left the cave at dusk. The sky was pale green. The jungle didn't hum anymore. It waited. We traveled along the ridge, following carved stones that Alira said were markers left by the old ones. They weren't warnings. They were invitations. That night, we stayed near a dried riverbed. Nali met us there, somehow finding us without being told. She said she'd seen the same light above her village, heard the same voice in the trees. She hadn't slept since. The 4 of us continued southeast toward the hollow valley. Few had ever gone that way. They said the wind turned backward there, and if you listened too long, you'd forget your own name. I felt it long before I saw it. A vast opening between cliffs where no animals passed. Even the plants seemed frozen. It wasn't cold, but my breath felt heavy. Time moved differently here. We stepped inside. The valley was silent. Each footstep echoed like it didn't belong. At the center, a stone structure rose out of the ground, shaped like a spiral opening downward. The gate. Alira placed her hand on its surface. It opened without sound. The air that rushed out wasn't wind. It was memory. Dense, overwhelming, thick with voices I'd never heard but somehow missed. Corin hesitated, then followed. Nali went after him. I stayed at the edge a moment longer. Something pulled at me. Not my body, my thoughts. When I stepped through, I didn't feel my feet move. The space inside folded inward, like a dream remembering itself. The walls shimmered. A hallway stretched before us, lined with carvings older than anything I'd seen. Not made with tools, formed by thought. Alira said this was the in-between, the place before time, where the old gods waited for silence. I asked why we were here. She didn't respond. She was staring ahead. A light pulsed at the far end of the hall. It grew brighter as we approached. Shapes shifted within it. Not people. Impressions, echoes. A child laughing, a man kneeling, a woman disappearing into ash. Corin reached for the light. Alira stopped him. She said not yet. We listened, and the light spoke. The light didn't speak in words. It moved like a memory, warm at first, then sharp. We stood still as it washed over us. My chest tightened. Alira breathed slowly, her eyes fixed on the glowing center. Something in her face softened, like recognition. She whispered my name, then Oren's. I looked at her, confused. She nodded toward the light. I stepped forward. The air thickened, but I kept going. Shapes shifted. A figure formed, hazy, tall, familiar. I froze. Oren stood just beyond the light's edge, or something wearing his shape. I called his name. He didn't answer. His eyes were distant, as if looking through me. Alira joined me and said softly, "He's caught between. Not dead, not living. The gate pulled part of him here. The rest remained behind." I didn't know what that meant, but my heart ached just hearing it. I asked if we could bring him back. Alira didn't reply. Instead, she placed a hand on the light. It pulsed, then dimmed. A voice, not the lights, not Oren's, spoke behind us. Corin turned first. A figure stepped from the shadows, tall, cloaked, but not Malik. His face was smooth, almost too smooth. No mouth, only a line where one should be. He spoke without speaking, said we had trespassed into a place meant only for memory, said the relic was not ours to touch. Alira stood firm. She said the gate had called me, that I didn't choose this path, I was summoned. The figure paused, then asked why I came. I hesitated. Everything inside me wanted to run, but I spoke. I said I was trying to return what was taken, or maybe return myself. The figure stared, then slowly stepped aside. He told us to follow, but not stray. We moved through a narrow corridor lined with shifting walls. They didn't stay still. Images formed and vanished. Faces, storms, ruins. Corin whispered that he saw his father. Nali reached for a carving that turned to ash beneath her fingers. We arrived at a circular chamber. In the center stood a monolith carved from something darker than stone. The figure told us this was where the relic had gone, and with it, everything it touched. The monolith pulsed. My chest tightened again. I heard my own voice echoing inside it, repeating words I hadn't said yet. Alira looked at me and said this was the moment, the decision. I didn't understand what choice I had, but the room changed. A doorway opened, showing two paths, one of light, one of silence. The figure told us only one path led out. The other, deeper in. Corin stepped forward. He chose light. Nali followed. I looked to Alira. She didn't move. Her eyes met mine. She said softly, "My place is here." She turned toward the silence. I was shaking. Everything inside me pulled in both directions. But I followed Corin. The path of light was narrow, filled with whispers and flashes of things I couldn't explain. When we emerged, we weren't in the same place. The sky was blue, the air smelled of dust and stone. We were back. Or somewhere close. Corin collapsed beside me. I looked around, but the relic was gone. Oren was still a whisper in my mind. Alira, a shadow in memory. And me, no longer just a visitor. Let me know when you're ready for part 6, a summary or visual prompt ideas for scenes from this chapter. I don't know if we ever truly left the gate. The sky looked familiar. The wind felt normal, but something about the rhythm of time felt slower, like we'd been moved slightly out of step. Corin sat beside me, quiet. His eyes scanned the horizon as if expecting the world to vanish again. We found a ridge overlooking the old excavation site. The camp was gone. No tents, no gear, just earth, undisturbed, as if none of it had ever happened. I didn't speak. Corin stood and started walking toward the hills. I followed, unsure what we were walking toward. The silence wasn't empty. It was full of questions I didn't want to ask. By dusk, we reached a line of old stones. Set deep in the earth, they pulsed faintly, not with light, but with memory. I touched one, my head filled with images of a time before writing, before cities. A woman chanting beside a lake, a boy reaching into fire, a face I knew but couldn't place. Nali appeared from the woods. Her clothes were torn, her face marked with ash. She looked different, older somehow. She said we weren't alone here. Not yet. I asked if she'd seen Alira. Her silence answered. We made camp under an overhang. I stayed awake most of the night. The stars were wrong, or maybe it was just me. Nali sang something soft, in a language I didn't know. Corin watched the fire. None of us talked about what was behind the gate. The next morning, we found a traveler along the river. His name was Thalen. Tall, quiet, with a strange glint in his eyes. He said he was following the fault lines. When I asked what that meant, he pointed to the cracks in the earth, faint but spreading. He said the old powers were waking again. We walked together for days, moving east. Birds returned, the air shifted, but time still didn't feel right. Thalen told us stories of places that moved when no one looked, of forests that remembered every footstep. I believed him. One night I saw a shadow just beyond the firelight, tall, unmoving. I blinked and it was gone. Nali said they were watching, not judging, just waiting. For what? No one knew. When we reached a plateau overlooking 3 valleys, Thalen stopped. He said this was the place, that the choice we made inside the gate had echoed forward, that each of us had left part of ourselves behind. I felt it, a weight in my chest, like I'd forgotten something important. He said the world was rebuilding itself around the pieces we brought back, that we weren't just witnesses anymore. We were threads. Nali wanted to return to the forest. Corin wasn't sure. I didn't know where I belonged now, but I knew I wasn't the same person who touched the relic in New Mexico. Something in me had shifted, like I'd walked out of my own reflection. I still wake up thinking I'm back there, in that jungle, standing at the edge of something ancient and breathing. But when I open my eyes, I hear a car pass outside, a bird somewhere. Reality feels thinner now, like a curtain someone forgot to close. Corin moved north, said he wanted to find the edge of the map, whatever that meant. Nali disappeared one morning before sunrise, left behind her woven bracelet and a pile of ash where she slept. I waited 2 more days, then followed the river west. The landscape felt wrong again. Trees leaned in directions they shouldn't. Water flowed uphill in one stream for nearly a mile. The wind carried voices, faint but always familiar. That's when I met Morel. She wasn't like Alira, younger, louder, but she knew things no one should. She said the relic had split, its echoes scattered through the earth like seeds. Some grew into visions, some into paths, others into people. We traveled together for days. She didn't ask questions, neither did I. There was a comfort in silence. But at night, she would draw in the dirt, symbols I recognized but couldn't name. She said they were memories the land tried to forget. We found an abandoned structure carved into the cliffs. Inside, the walls were warm to the touch, and when I leaned close, I could hear humming. Not mechanical, living, like breath. Morel stepped through a small doorway and vanished. I hesitated, then followed. The air inside felt wet, even though everything was dry. Lights danced above our heads, soft and golden. I felt my heartbeat slow. A large chamber opened before us, filled with hanging stone spirals. They moved without wind. Morel said this was where the timelines bent. Not broke, bent. I saw visions flicker between the spirals. A man with glowing eyes standing in a field of glass. A woman speaking to a tree that bled light. My face, older, looking straight at me. I stepped back. Morel placed her hand on one of the spirals. The room froze. Everything held its breath. Then I heard a name whispered. Oren. It wasn't my voice. It wasn't hers, but it was real. I looked around, but nothing changed. Just that name, hanging in the air like a promise. We left before the sun rose. Outside, the ground was cracked and red. Morel said we were close now. That if I wanted to find him, I had to be willing to let go of what I thought I knew. She told me to walk to the edge of the valley and wait. Alone, I didn't want to, but I did. The valley was silent. I sat on the rock, watched the clouds drift backward, listened to the grass whisper things I couldn't write down. Hours passed. Then, just before night fell, I saw him. Oren. He wasn't walking. He was drifting, like memory becoming solid. He stopped 10 feet away. His eyes were the same, that calm storm behind them. He reached out his hand. I didn't take it, because something in me said, this wasn't him. It was the echo that stayed behind. Let me know if you'd like to continue with Part 8, a short series summary, or generate AI scene prompts based on this part.